Snow, and this is Gas and Go. Welcome to another episode of Gas and Go with Snow. All right, we are here with our friends at Magna Flow. Rich, first of all, thanks for taking the time to, show us around a little bit. And we stored the little giant here with Magna Flow for a few weeks, and walking around their, facility, man, you got some amazing stuff here. So if you don't mind, let's take a couple minutes and look at some of the stuff we have here. So let's start right here. What is this?
So we get the fortunate ability to house a little bit of one of our ambassadors, Chip Foose's collection.
Okay.
And this is probably the single largest influencer in his life, which Sam Foose, his dad, this was one of his pride and joys and one of the vehicles that he's kept around. And we've had the fun and ability to show what goes into hot rodding. It's kind of what we're into.
Right.
So you got like a fairly stock 47 convertible here, and then you have his dad's version of it. So when you talk about the ultimate in hot rodding, chopped tops, and we've got, reimagined body styles. I mean, the French din lights and things. There's so many small details that you can't quite appreciate. It just looks like a cool hot rod until you really see it side by side
with an original build.
How much was changed from the body lines, and you look at the elements of the front bumper and how, the accents were changed from what the normal 47 had in chrome to a more minimalistic and cleaner approach that you saw from the hot rodding world. So
my understanding is this guy has a little bit of history to it too. So she was a show winner in her own right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, pretty awesome that Chip leaves us with all this stuff too, and he likes to show it off. But this is a cover car, and it's had its history here, and it's pretty wild to even have this. And I always have to gingerly hold it, but it's also a centerfold car.
There you go. Now, when is this magazine? When is the time frame on this?
So going back to this publication, gosh, I want to say this was in August of 1977.
Wow. So she's been around for a while.
Yep. And you can see some small iterations and the changes from its original, but some of the biggest things I loved about this is what you see in a lot of Chip's newer stuff too, is it's like the engine compartment has got so much detail, but on the outside it's smooth, it's clean, it's monochrome, but it's really one of those things. It's kind of like the jewelry box effect, as he likes to call it. And it came from his father, where when you open the hood, now you get to see.
Yeah, now get a look under there. And you know what? I love the checkerboard. It totally reminds me of the old school garage man cave,
And it's just got so much, contrast too. It's also, the checkered flag and, the racing history portion of it too. But I think it's just so awesome to see the amount of detail that was put into something that really, unless you pop the hood, you can't appreciate. And I think a lot of that goes into kind of what we as enthusiasts and of course mechanics and car builders do is that's for us. That's where we put our pride and joys in the powertrain and the aesthetics that maybe you can't even appreciate till you pop the hood. But the details everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look.
Yeah, this is really nice. All right. Well, let's move over here to the Chevy truck. What year is this in?
So this started out as a 49, and for us, we a few years back wanted to, it was during the hype of all the restoration cars and whatnot, and we had so many of our consumers and our builders that we had building out the vehicle. So we wanted an icon piece that kind of spoke to our world, and we created what was the Revolver, and the name comes from what's in the back.
Okay, well, let's go look at that, because when you showed this to me, this is just an incredible piece of engineering right here. Well, what's the purpose of this?
It was something that kind of came about in a very unusual way. I got stuck in an airplane at an airport in Texas because of the strike that Delta had, and I got stuck on the tarmac for 6 hours, and I started sketching. And I'll have to get you the picture on a napkin. And actually, this is a napkin drawing, and it was just an idea because one of our customers was like, hey, it's so hard to tell somebody with words what different exhaust parts do in sound. It's deeper, it's throatier, it's got a little more rasp. But what do those words mean from one person to the other? And we're like, well, how could you make something that gave you a driving experience you can switch on the fly? So while you're in the cabin, here's what a different shape and size muffler does to the tone. Here's what it does to the loudness. And then, of course, you can hear it driving by, but it's switch on the fly. The best thing that they did before is some exhaust shops do it. They can put a different muffler on for you and let you hear it, but it's quite the ordeal.
Yeah.
Here, this gave us kind of a demonstration tool that was a cool part. And it's actually a very capable vehicle too, because if you look at the underpinnings, I mean, we got a 4-link suspension, 9-inch rear. You know, this is all TCI rolling chassis, Mustang 2 suspension, so it's all been updated. So it's a performer, but it also can demonstrate our different sound capabilities.
So on this guy, originally, right, you could push a button. The whole mechanism would, you know, slide out, rotate 1, 2, 3 exhaust, whatever you want to do, and then clamp back down, clamp here, obviously minus the clamp, clamp, get you a seal, and you hear your sound coming out of the muffler.
So we would use an electric valve, so we can switch from the primary exhaust, and it would come up through here. And originally we had we ran off of the power steering pump to drive it, and we used a hydraulic pump to drive it. And then it had a ram, and you can still see some of the remnants. We've tied it all in, but the ram would push out. We would rotate till we got to the position we wanted, and then the ram would close back down, and we would now have a tight seal and be routing all the way through.
Seal up against, from that flange, you seal right here, and no exhaust leak.
Correct. Okay. We had some concerns about fingers and people touching at shows, and eventually we had some leaks and stuff that came from the pump, and we ended up making it more of a static display, and we kind of locked it in place so that we could go and have some performance driving and not worry about the rear mechanism coming loose and other things as well.
All right. Okay. I like it.
Yeah, really cool on the interior. We had some customization done in there with all modern seats and things. And
I like I like the high shifter too.
I think one of the other fun parts on this one too is the fact that it is a modern motor. It's an LS3 E-Rod motor. So we're an emissions company, and what we ended up doing was using the appropriate, this is a fully catalyzed LS3, you know, making 430 horsepower.
So even if that powertrain was in a modern car, you'd still pass smog.
Basically. And that was the big idea for us, is we're an emissions company that also does exhaust, and you can have high performance and still not worry about having to be environmentally polluting and have a great sound too.
Okay. And now I want to make sure that we point out everything here has either a MagnaFlow exhaust, or in the case of the electric vehicles, we'll just say some MagnaFlow influence.
Engineering. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about this Viper, because my understanding is this has a pretty unique story behind it.
Yeah, the guys at Throttle, we've partnered with them for a few years now, and they get to do a lot of the fun stuff that you see them out there. They have a great channel, so you can go check them out on YouTube. But they're also a distributor of our products. Throttle.com sells MagnaFlow, and you can buy all your parts through them. So tell me about this. There's a small change in there. If you notice, it's got a different number.
It looks like they misspelled 10.
And you might think that losing a couple of cylinders might be a bad thing, but if you know the history on this one, those 2 cylinders got a little extra help from a very nice blower, and it's now got, you know, your SRT8 supercharged V8. So you're now talking about a Hellcat motor. And the history of this one particularly was, it was one of the Roadkill Knights vehicles, and Dodge had come up with a bunch of teams to help build out a car. It just had to be a Dodge vehicle, and put in a Hellcat motor. So here we are, we're working with a little bit of extra motivation from 2 fewer cylinders. But obviously you can see it was a drag setup, and got converted from the manual transmission to an automatic, and we fully outfitted it with some exhaust, but we had to give it a little bit of headroom because the fun button.
Like, maybe you got a little extra help back here.
Supercharged and a little bit of
go-go juice.
Giggle juice.
There you go.
So yeah, pretty fun vehicle, and it's just nice that we get to take all of our business partners and showcase all the fun things that they get to do with their cars.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, the Welshman.
Ah, yes.
The Welshman had a soft spot for this Ferrari over here. Before we get to the Ferrari, though, this seems like a very unique piece.
Yeah, you can't pass up the Hemisphere.
This, my understanding, is the predecessor, right, to the Prowler.
Yeah, so
how did this come about?
All of that ideation that goes into like building concept cars comes from these very interesting and obviously inspired vehicles. And Chip, in his notoriety for being a builder of the 30s and 40s cars and such, and his relationship with all the OEMs, this is a 33 Plymouth, hard to see it all with all the modernization, but it became part of the influence to what became the late model Prowler. Now, a lot of differences. We didn't have to worry about
significant
bumpers.
one being that Hemi back there.
Well, and a mid-engine, which is wild to think already.
Yeah.
Under this hood, as you can see, is basically all the cooling systems and storage. But you have the cantilever suspension, so you can have nice, clean
this is
control
so
arms.
nice. Yeah.
You have late model brakes kind of hidden behind the old drum coolers. So
Right.
you've got a big brake system from Bear and, 6-piston brakes. So it's got the stopping power.
Yeah.
All the suspensions neatly hidden behind the grille.
Okay.
But you are motivated by a, naturally aspirated individual runner injection system.
Well, I would imagine
Heavy.
this car is really light too for
goodness.
what it is.
Yeah, you can imagine it's probably quite the handful. And being low slung helps, and the big brakes helps. But it definitely, when you hit the motivation pedal, can get a little exciting.
Yeah, I mean, she'll get going.
Another thing to notice too, though, is that you might see through the paint job that it's got some carbon fiber coming through, and it is coming through. So this entire body is carbon fiber.
Oh wow! So that makes it even lighter than I thought it would have been.
Yeah, take a closer look, and you can see that's the actual carbon coming through with paint over the top. And there's only 5 of these that were made, and they were a complete carbon fiber bodied vehicle, trimless window, and of course with the big heavy power.
And this is number 1.
This is the number 1 car. Yep.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Definitely worthy of a museum piece. Now, how about here? So this is one of the Welshman's favorite cars here.
Well, this does break our number 1 rule that we talked about. This does not have a MagnaFlow exhaust on it. But it does belong to Chip, and we have housed a lot of his other vehicles here.
Okay.
And it is a unique vehicle in that sense. It's a 1969 330 GTC. And this happened to be a vehicle that, in the world of owning a lot of cars and building a lot of cool cars, Chip had the opportunity to trade some of his to one of his customers that wanted a couple of his cars for something that he had. And to the best of my knowledge, this one was a trade for, I believe, the customer picked up his black 69 Z28 with the white stripes. Okay. And he had another vehicle, I believe it was his SRT10 Ram. Remember those things, the big V10 manual transmission trucks? Yeah. Well, they had a Foose edition of that, and I think he packaged those up, and this plus another car, and kind of came together to finally put this into his collection. Yeah.
Well, it looks like, like an original style restoration, and this thing is really nice, and that paint looks like it's a mile deep.
Well, the funny part is I'm pretty sure that he hasn't touched much of this. This is how the condition is he got it, and it's one of the few cars where I think he has some ideas, but it's so much on its own that he's kind of left it as is, and we'll see where it goes. I'm pretty sure that he's kept it this long with the intentions of doing something interesting to it.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? I know you're busy and you got a lot to do, so thanks for taking the time to do this.
Always happy to.
We'll see you guys next time on Gas and Go with Snow.